Welcome to today's class. I am Sri Ridhma Bhatia, and I'll be taking you through chapter 15, Deduction, Collection and Recovery of Tax. I'll wait for everyone to settle down, and next 1 minute we'll start the class. Meanwhile, those who have already joined the live class, what do you understand by these TDS, TCS, and recovery, and how much of you have practiced in your articleship on TDS, TCS? Just a very quick approach to understand how the mechanism works. Meanwhile, everyone gets settled in and we'll start. Okay, so we have people who have done TDS returns, 26Q, 27EQ, very interesting. Anyone else has got a chance to practice TDS in their routine work? You know what? This is very interesting because TDS and TCS and advanced tax is something, especially TDS, TCS, is something which even if you're into tax audit, then also you have to do. If you're doing pure accounting work, then also this term would have been seen. And if you are into GST also, there is also some different TDS, TCS there. So this work, I think, for a person who's in practice or later when they will do job, TDS, TCS, advanced tax will never, ever leave them. So let's begin today's class. Just 1 second. Okay. So we do have a long, journey. Now, TDS TCS, if I talk about TDS TCS and I talk about somewhere back when I used to study, almost now close to 8-9 years back, TDS TCS was there, but it was not this deep, this these many notifications, these many sections were honestly not there. But today, if I see TDS, TCS practically and from your paper point of view, this chapter has become very important. So somewhere close to 2 questions, or if I say somewhere close to 6 to 10 marks questions you get in your exam. So exam point set is A, very important. Now coming to practical point of view, TDS, TCS, these mechanisms you will see if you're into tax audit, if you're into accounting, if you're into your own practice, and later when in future, even if you are not doing any of things and you will be doing your own job, then also you should know about TDS, TCS because it will not leave you, as I just said before. But before understanding what TDS, TCS, and recovery of taxes, let's understand one theory. We know that income tax may we have assessee, right? Who every year determine the income which they've earned in the previous year, assess it in the assessment year, file the return. So this is the concept. Previous year may you earn, assessment year may you pay the tax, basically assess it and pay the tax on it. The assessment year is immediately after the previous year. Now, logically, whatever you're earning in previous year, there is this entire previous year. So for you, the applicable assessment year is assessment year 23-24 and previous year 22-23. So whatever you are earning throughout this period, you will assess it, then pay the tax on it. Now, what is happening because of this? The government is not getting the revenue because tax is the revenue for them, right? So they have to wait for an entire year to get over and then for you to voluntarily come and pay the taxes by filing the return. So it becomes a very, very long time for the government. So what government thought of? They thought of recovering the taxes in the previous year itself. अब assessee से recover करना है taxes in the previous year itself so that there is an outflow of revenue for the government. So they came up with 3 concepts: TDS, TCS, and advanced tax. And this is all what this chapter is. These 3 things, everything about this would be covered in this chapter. So TDS, TCS, advanced tax. Now these 2 are the mechanism which we say the source somewhere will deduct the tax when the income is generated, deposit the tax on your behalf. So assessee is not depositing the tax himself. The other person would either deduct the tax and then give you the payment. The other person will either collect the tax from you and then deposit it to the government, but you are not doing anything. In TDS, TCS mechanism, the other person pay compliance burden. Okay, what the word I use? A compliance burden is there on the other person to recover the tax from you, either through deduction while making payment, that is TDS, or collecting from you, that is TCS, and then deposit to the government. As an assessee, what happens to you? You will get the benefit of that tax and you will set it off while filing your return of income in the assessment year. So you will take the credit of it. If extra tax is deducted, you will get the refund. If there is more tax payable even after TDS or TCS, you will pay it. Similarly works the concept of advanced tax. Now, advanced tax means what happens? You pay the tax in the assessment year itself, in the previous year itself, on estimation basis in 4 installments. This is advanced tax. Ab bologe khatam? No, this is just a boundary which I tried to create for the coming 3 classes. So as I was telling you that some 7-8 years back, this chapter was not as lengthy as it is today. The clarifications were not there. I remember in past 4-5 budgets, it cannot happen that there will not be an amendment in relation to TDS TCS. Some new section is coming, some new section is coming from here, some new clarification is coming, some changes are rates are coming. So budget and amendments in TDS TCS go hands in hand. So first, today's class and probably tomorrow, the next class which we'll be having would cover all the provisions of TDS, and then we'll cover TCS and advanced tax. So the periphery is created, understood. So someone who's joining now, you've not missed anything bigger because we just discussed a basic concept. Okay. One second. So one thing, students, मेरी class में you have to remember that you have to participate. Without participation, नहीं चलेगा. Right answer, wrong answer, minute doubt, big doubt, anything related to topic, please participate. And also, I do not particularly feel in the mechanism of feed you and spoon feed you with notes. I generally encourage the practice of making self notes and get involved in the class. So please ये दो चीजें जरूर रखना and please ask your doubts. Okay, so let's begin today's class. तो सबसे पहले now every focus would be on, as I said, TDS. कुछ चीजें याद रखना है TDS में क्या important है. So there would be a person who's a payer and then there's a person who is paying. Income tax में एक का income दूसरे का खर्चा, right? So you have to assume first abhi to understand that you are the pay. You are the pay. So Mr. A and Mr. B are there. So you are Mr. B. Mr. A and Mr. B में transactions happen. Mr. A has to make payment of say 1 lakh to Mr. B. Now this 1 lakh ka payment, if TDS is applicable, would be made net of TDS. Now, first of all, who's the source of income? The source is Mr. A. Income किसका हो रहा है? Mr. B का. Return में दिखाएगा कौन? Mr. B. But the source is Mr. A. So now government TDS को लेके आई. A, government को regular flow of income मिले. B, government को information मिले of the incomes which are in the economy, incomes which are generated in the economy. So with the intention of having a proper information and updated information of the assessees, TDS mechanism was introduced. And this is the reason the TDS mechanism is getting extended to many different types of payments. So Mr. A is the source here. He will make payment to Mr. B. If TDS is applicable, he'll make this payment net of TDS. So suppose 10% TDS is applicable, just to explain you the concept of TDS, he will, out of 1 lakh, he will pay 90,000 to Mr. B and 10,000 to the government. Now, one thing has to be clear that this 90,000 would be credited to Mr. B and 10,000 to the government. But you have to make sure that for Mr. A, kharcha is 90,000 or 1 lakh. It is 1 lakh. So the expense account would be debited by 1 lakh. For Mr. B, income is 90,000 or 1 lakh. It is 1 lakh. It's just that the inflows have changed and the outflows have changed. For Mr. A, outflow would have been of 1 lakh only. But now what has happened, 90,000 from his account has gone to Mr. B and 10,000 from his account has gone to the government. So outflow has been the same. And for Mr. B, whose income is 1 lakh, 90,000 unko khud mila and 10,000 is deposited to the government on behalf of Mr. B. So Mr. A will deposit it in the name of Mr. B and furnish the return by showing it is Mr. B's. ये जो 10,000 A ने deposit करा वो Mr. B का है. So government को कैसे पता चलेगा? Mr. A will file a separate TDS return, not income tax return, a TDS return. Return is not giving back. Return is the statement. Return is a statement. So TDS statement file करेंगे every quarter, whereby he will tell is the tax which I have deposited. This is the tax. This is in the favor of whose person I have deposited. So Mr. B को भी 10,000 का ये tax credit मिल जाएगा. So this 10,000 becomes tax credit. Income nowhere reduces to 90,000. Mr. B के लिए income is 1 lakh only. Okay, so this mechanism, please be very sure about it. And I assume more people of you who have already filing the return knows this. Now, Mr. A has a compliance of deducting the tax. He has a compliance of depositing the tax to the government. Then he has a compliance of filing the TDS return. And then he has to issue a certificate to Mr. B also. Okay, I have done all of this and this is your proof that I have deducted the TDS, deposited it on your behalf, and this is your proof. Okay, so you can see the person or whose all of this liability happens, who we call commonly as deductor or payer, has an altogether set of compliances to do, which is filing the returns, issuing the certificates, and then intimation comes, that also has to be taken care of. So he has an all set of compliances to do. Whereas Mr. B does not have to worry, he just have to take a TDS credit. The part is his outflows might get disrupted because certain part of tax is going to the government directly. Okay, is it clear now? But if suppose someday Mr. A had to deduct the TDS, he did not deduct it. Can Mr. B say that Mr. A ka kaam tha TDS kaatna, he did not deduct, why should I pay the tax to the government? No. Ultimately, the tax has to be disposed of from Mr. B only. From Mr. B only. Isme bhi A koi apne pocket se alag se nahi de raha. He is giving that 1 lakh only, which otherwise he had to give to Mr. B if no TDS was deducted, right? So Mr. B, the deductor cannot, the deductee or the payee or the assessee cannot say that on the payment on which TDS was bound to be deducted and the tax was not deducted, it is not now my liability to dispose it of. It will always be the assessor's liability to dispose it off at the end. Mechanism clear? So, as I just told you all this, we cover TDS through different payments. Different payments. All types of payments are not covered under TDS. ऐसा नहीं है because economy में every now and then an income is getting generated, right? But it is not important that on all income, all the sources have to deduct tax. Only on the incomes which are covered under the TDS provisions, only on those income the TDS has to be deducted. So for each type of payment, we have a different section in audit. We start from section 192 and go to section 195. No, it's not only 3 sections. There are a lot of sections cover here. Each section will talk about the deductor. Who would be the deductor? Yeah. Who would be the deductor? Who would be the deductee? Or you can say payer pay, as we saw. What is the rate of TDS? Because every section tells us the rate on at which you have to deduct the tax. ऐसा नहीं है that I will deduct the tax at 10% or there is a flat rate for all the sections. No, there is rate for TDS and every section tells the rate at which you have to deduct the TDS. Then there is some threshold limit or a triggering limit that if the nature of payment exceeds a certain amount, then only a TDS has to be deducted. Not on all incomes. Maybe it happens somewhere there not be any limit. We'll see section wise. The time of deduction. This is very important. When do I have to deduct tax? Just then I have received the bill or I've received the services or I'm making the payment or I'm making the advance payment, I'm settling the account, when the TDS has to be deducted. So time of deduction is also very important, plus any other points which we have to take care of. So this is how you have to, or we will cover the each type of TDS deductible payments. So can I request, as we do, you people can prepare a chart or a table covering these 5-6 segments: nature, obviously the section, deductor, deductee, rate, threshold limit, time of deduction, and other points you have to take care of. Okay. So in most of the sections where we'll be seeing, there would be flat rates. Flat rates matlab 10% means 10%, 15% means 15%, 30% means 30%. So these rates are flat rates. No surcharge or cess has to be added irrespective of the amount, but only if the payments are made to non-residents or if it's in the nature of salary, then only you have to add surcharge and cess. So this is a general rule which you can write. These are the flat rates. Secondly, most of the section may, once the threshold limit crosses, you have to deduct the tax on the full amount, not only on the excess amount. We will see just few sections, handful of sections only cover the excess amount wala part. Okay. Then time of deduction पे will come. All these points of each particular section would be discussed one by one. So do not worry. Now let's begin with our first section. So I see people with a lot of experience have come understanding TDS. Very interesting. I hope the content is readable. Okay. The first payment which we are going to discuss is salary section 192. So one after payment, we'll discuss today. Now first, the most common section 192. This means section 192 may you will deduct TDS for the payment which is in the nature of salary. The first question to be asked here is, who has to deduct the TDS? Obviously, only the employer will deduct the TDS. So who is the deductor? The employer. Who is the deductee? The employee. So salary mein when you talk, and we understand through charging section also, salary mein only the income is which is charges when it is coming from the nature of employer and employee relationship. Only that income is tagged as salary. And usi salary income pe you have to deduct the TDS under section 192. Now here you will ask, can an employer be resident, non-resident? Yes, he can be resident, non-resident. Can an employee be resident, non-resident? Yes. So even if I'm paying a salary to a non-resident, then also the TDS has to be deducted. Everyone has to deduct the TDS under salary. Now, the question next is the rate. The rate is the average slab rate. Ma'am, please clarify what is this slab rates? How will on slab rates we will deduct the TDS? So let's take an example of a person, Mr. Raju. Mr. Raju is working on ABC Limited at a fixed salary of 20,000 per month basic and 10,000 per month DNS allowance and 15,000 per month HRA. He lives in his own accommodation and 10,000 per month other allowances. So if I talk about his taxable salary, what would be his taxable salary? You have to be on your calculators with me all the time. It comes to 6,60,000, correct? And suppose he has given me just 50,000 ka standard deduction, it comes to 6,10,000, right? Any other thing? Suppose he has given me this information only. Now you will say, ma'am, we have to deduct the TDS because we are paying salary, and aapne kaha hai, every employer has to deduct the TDS for every employee, right? So how will I deduct the TDS? Now, what would have been the tax on this salary income of 6,10,000? He is an individual of less than 60 years of age. Quickly, I want a quick answer. Total tax including cess. Correct. Koshki, is it 35,800 or 35,880? Good. So 35,880 sabka aa gaya. So this 35,880, now as an employer, I know I would be paying him this amount throughout the year. So 35,880 is the tax which is coming on this salary income. This divide by 12. Just 2,990 per month. Now I will deduct him. I'll deduct this from his salary. So 55,000 may say every month I will deduct 2,990 and then make the payment of it. Now you will ask, ma'am, what if his salary changes during the year? Yes, no problem. Suppose his salary changes. I was deducting 299 per month, okay? But suppose his basic salary changes from July onwards. Now, ab kya hua? 20,000 into 3 plus 25,000 into 9. Similarly, 10,000 into 3 plus ये हो गया suppose DNS allowance 12,000 into 9. 15,000 into 3 HRA plus 20,000 into 9. मतलब he got a very good increment and this remained as 10,000. So अब क्या होगा? April, May, June, I deducted TDS at 2990. अब I cannot go back and revise the return. This is not there as a provision कि मैंने deduct कम किया. No. If the salary gets revised during the year, then for the remaining months, the tax calculation changes. What is the employer doing? Employer is doing nothing but making a computation for all his employee and then deducting the tax. In a way, he's making a computation for all his employees, a mini computation for his record, calculating the total income of the employee, calculating the tax on that income of the employee, and then depositing it under section 192. So अब यहाँ के case में what happened? Now, as soon as his income got increased, what impact did it make on the taxes? Let's quickly see. $7,68,000. अब इस पे standard deduction of 50,000. $7,18,000 पे quickly of the tax. Now the tax liability comes to 58,344, or you can say 340. ठीक है? But what has happened? मैंने तो 35,800 के according में April में June में tax काटा. Now what will I do for July onwards? What will I do? I will reduce the taxes which has already been deducted, 2990 into 3, which will come to I'm rounding it off, which will come to 49370 is now the remaining tax payable for the remaining 9 months. So now this would be divided by 9 and I will come to the amount of 5,485 per month. So you see what has happened now. As the salary got increased, his TDS liability also got increased. Now he would be quite anxious that bhai, TDS is getting increased. So what he did, now as per the law under section 192, an employer will take the TDS on salary also. But at the same time, there are 3 things which you have to remember. At the same time, if the employee wants to declare some other income, then, and this is voluntary, employee may declare his other incomes to his employer. Then the employer has to take them into account while deducting the TDS. The losses of any other head, if declared by the employee to the employer, would not be taken except house property loss. And at the same time, if he gives any tax saving investments, that also has to be considered. So it is not mandatory for the employee to give all the information to the employer of his other income, because salary ka information is with employer, right? Other income ka mandatory nahi hai dena. बट एज एन एम्प्लॉय आई एम थिंकिंग कि अदरवाइज मुझे एडवांस टैक्स देना पड़ेगा, टैक्स अलग से पे करना पड़ेगा. So I will tell it to my employer only. He will consider it. The moment I tell him, he has to take it into account. He cannot say that I am not taking into account. मेरा सरदर्दी. No. And then ऐसे ही कुछ losses हुए. Suppose I have capital gain losses. Suppose I have any other losses. I might declare it, but he will not consider it. He will only consider house property loss, which is coming because of interest on loan. And in very particular cases due to municipal taxes, okay? Then tax saving investments. I'm making any investments under ATC, ATD, ATG, any investments which I have, I can declare him and he has to consider. So जैसे ही मिस्टर राजू को पता चला कि मेरा 5,485 rupees tax बन जाएगा per month, so he made investment declaration and he said कि मेरा 1,50,000 ATC में कर दो. अब ये उन्होंने कब बताया? He told this in the month of September. Not September भी नहीं, October. ठीक है, 6 months का tax already deduct हो गया. अब 7,18,000 was the salary which was going. 1,50,000 इसमें से और we reduced. Okay. 7,18,000 minus 1,50,000. 568. Okay. Now, अब इसमें से already how much tax is deducted? Let's see. Now, tax liability अगर मैं इस पे करूं तो 26,100 आता है, right? 26,100 आता है. इसमें से already 2,990 for 3 months have been deducted plus 5,485 for the next 3 months, which is July, August, September, May. Deduction has happened. So let's see. So 25,425 has already been deducted till September. Now minus 26,100. Hardly 675 has to be deducted. And this would also be deducted in the remaining months. Now, यहाँ पे there are few learnings which you have to take care of in practical life. I cannot say as an employer practically कि 675 भी तो काटना है तो मैं end में काटूंगी. नहीं. The practice should go on the remaining months which are there. Now you will say, ma'am, what if the employer leaves the organization in between? How will we get to know? So when his full and final settlement happens, the employer will make sure that at least all the taxes on salary has been considered. Now, as this Mr. Raju declared something in the middle of the year, generally in practical life, the declaration happens at the starting of the year, and by the month of February of that particular financial year, you have to give the proof to say. Now, proofs में other income के लिए तो there is no proof required. House property में you have to give your interest certificate जिसमें borrowed का PAN card आ रहा हो basically. Tax saving investments में you have to give the receipts. LIC का receipt, medical premium का receipts, ATG का donation receipt, all of this. So then only he will consider it. Otherwise, at the end of the year, if you do not give the proof to the employer, they will not consider it. Whatever is with them in their record, as per that, he will make a mini computation and deduct the final tax. So, Abhi, I'm telling you, it's a hot time for all the employers who are getting the tax saving proofs from the employee, and employee are juggling in getting all these tax saving proofs. Okay. Plus, beach mein very less organization allows you to make a declaration. Sometimes they open the window. So it's totally from employer to employer based that you will say, ma'am, beach mein to declaration is not allowed. Few organizations allow, very few organizations allow. Generally, it is at the beginning of the year. So other income, if I tell, suppose now I tell my employer on the other income part that I have a good FD interest of 3 lakhs, then he has to consider the FD interest. उसके साथ साथ I will tell him कि suppose FD interest पे भी TDS deduct हो रहा है. I will tell him that also, and he will consider that TDS also, and then he will come to the liability. He is not doing anything. He is calculating my income, my total income based on the information he has of salary plus the information which I provide. Uspe he is calculating the tax. Any tax benefit is there, he's removing it. And then on the remaining amount, he's deducting the tax per month for whatever remaining months I am there. Any doubt in how the salary computation happens? Now you saw for calculating the tax, we have added the cess, and also if the situation is of 50 lakhs or more salary, we will add the surcharge also, and then we'll come to the average rate. Salary is the salary which is taxable under the head salary for the employee. There is no difference. ऐसा नहीं है कि I'm deducting the tax on some other salary and it will some other amount is getting taxed in the hands of employee, या जितना मैं बैंक अकाउंट पे डाल रही हूँ उसी पे TDS डिडक्ट करना है. नो, द सैलरी विच इज टैक्सेबल एज सैलरी, उस पे TDS has to be deducted. Is it clear? Does anyone has any doubt on salary? Good. अभी सैलरी खत्म नहीं हुआ. Now let's move forward to understand the other part. Now what happens? There can be a case of dual employment. I'm working with X company in the morning, then I'm working with Y company in the evening. Or there can be a case of shift of employment during the year. I was working with X company till the middle of the year. Now I have started working with Y company. Now यहाँ पे for all the my prospective employees who will be going to industry and working, just remember a few things. Suppose I'm working with X and working with Y simultaneously. X say I'm getting salary of 10 lakhs. Y say I'm getting salary of say 12 lakhs. Now let's compute the TDS. यहाँ पे भी I'll get standard deduction. यहाँ पे भी I'll get standard deduction. So X and Y, let's see कितना कितना TDS काटेंगे. Let's quickly see what amount of TDS would be deducted by X and Y. Quickly answer. This is 10 lakhs. सबका TDS amount match हो गया? See student, until and unless you will practice by yourself, it would be a problem. Okay, so Sat, please. Now I am all relaxed and chill. Why? Because X ne bhi TDS काट लिया, Y ने भी TDS काट लिया, and this is my only income. Now I come and file my return. I show salary income of total. How much? 22 lakhs. Now यहाँ पे आएगा problem मुझे. Let's see what would be the problem I'll face. So I am showing now the salary of 22 lakhs. Now 50,000 standard deduction. So 21 lakh 50,000 pay, I have to pay the taxes. I don't have any other deductions. Now what was happening with me? You will see a shock what will come. And why it is coming, you already know. Total tax is coming as 475,800. And the TDS which I only have is this. And I'm like, why this happened? दोनों ने तो अपनी TDS काट लिया था. दोनों ने तो अपना अपना TDS काट लिया था. So why I have to pay from the pocket? The reason is why I have to pay. A, standard deduction both has taken. As an SSE, I am allowed only one standard deduction. B, both have taken the slab benefits, maximum exemption limit benefits, and then the other income as in the slab benefit. दोनों ने 5% लिया, फिर 20% लिया. So because of this, you see a huge variation is coming in the tax liability. So as an employee, what mistake I did? I did not declare. So, and now I have to pay from my pocket. Where did it go? Now I have to pay from my pocket. It went somewhere. 2,05,400 as tax, which otherwise also was going from my pocket only because net cash inflow was getting less. But it would have been not my liability to dispose it off. If I would have declared either X income to Y or Y's income to X, then they would have taken care of, and then the TDS would have deducted accordingly, right? So one route was this. Another route was either I should have, if I know that I'm making this mistake, then I should be quite diligent in depositing advance tax. Because nahi to kya hoga? While filing the return 234B, 234C, you will see the repercussions which will come. So these two routes, again, I'm not saying as an employee, you have to declare it. No, I'm saying it is recommended to declare it so that you can sit back and relax without any worrying of depositing advance tax or self-assessment tax. Is it clear? Clear. Next thing. Now, someone has asked, ma'am, what if we give the details to the employer and he does not consider? He has to consider these details. He does not have an option to consider it. And people, someone is saying, ma'am, we have not seen an employee declaring other income other than interest. Many people do not declare other incomes because of the fear of their personal inflows being disclosed. That is totally fine. That's what I'm saying. It is not mandatory, but as an employee, you have to take care of two things. That if you do not want to declare it, be very vigilant in paying advance tax. And secondly, as an employer, if the person is declaring it, be very sure that you have to take into account. Okay. Next, very famous case law is there of ITC, which I would like to discuss. One thing which no one asked, ma'am, what if the person is following the new tax regime of 115 BAC, whether the TDS has to be deducted as per the new tax regime or the TDS has to be deducted as per the old tax regime? So the answer is, if the employee has asked himself that the TDS should be deducted as per the new tax regime for the assessment year 23-24, I'm saying, because going forward it is vice versa, then in that case, if they have declared it that they want to follow the new tax regime, then as an employee, you have to deduct the TDS as per the new tax regime. You cannot say that I do not want to, I will deduct the TDS as per the old tax regime for everyone. No. And it is also not mandatory for the employee. This is very interesting. Nowhere it is written that if the employer has deducted the TDS as per the new tax regime, which is 115 BAC, then in the return, you have to show the tax as per 115 BAC. No, it is not mandatory. Until and unless you have a business income, you can opt in and opt out any particular time. Okay, so it can happen in your own return. You're paying tax as per the old tax regime. It is totally fine. You will get the TDS credit for the tax deducted under section 192. Any doubt up till now? Salary part pay? Yeah. So I was telling about the ITC case law, which is very common case law, which has happened, and now it has become a very important route. Now, what happened is you go to restaurants or you go to hotels. Okay, there you have a tendency to pay tip. Sometimes you pay the tip along with the bill. Sometimes you pay to the direct staff, support staff who is coming. But sometimes you pay the tip. So suppose Mr. X goes to an hotel by ITC and he's paying the tip there. Now what ITC does? ITC collects the tip and then gives that tip to the employee who's a staff of ITC. Right? Now question comes whether on these tips the ITC should deduct the TDS or not. Whether on these tips the ITC should deduct the TDS or not. So this was the question which was arose. So a very strong judgment came of the Supreme Court that these tips are not coming out of the contract between an employer and employee. These tips are the voluntary contributions which have been made by a third person, and ITC is just reimbursing them. Right? ITC is just reimbursing them. For the staff also, these tips would not be salary income. It would be in other sources income. This is not a salary income because it is not coming from the employer-employee relationship. It is coming from the duty and out of the gracious payment which some other person has made. So with this being clarified, whatever tip the ITC is distributing to the staff, on that 192 is not attracted. On that, section 192 is not attracted. So at your stage, I can rightfully say that few of the case laws you have to remember. Sometimes a 2 markers theory question can come, and it is obviously always encouraged to write those case laws. Okay, so this tip part is clear. Next, how many of you know about section 40A(5)? How many of you have studied about this and have know about it? Because this is covered in PGBP also. Okay. So what happens many times, and this happens generally in case of secondment cases or in case of top management, the employer bears the tax on the non-monetary perquisite. Abhi tak you have understood that TDS is not something which you are paying from your own pocket. It is an amount which you have to pay to the person or to the payee, and from that amount only you're deducting a certain percentage and depositing to the government. Correct? So it is an outflow which had to happen, right? And perquisite ka kya matlab hai? If I talk about perquisite is a term where we use for the terms of employer-employee, that it is a benefit which is given to an employee from the employer, right? And benefit or any sort of your liability which is discharged by the employer, it becomes a perquisite, right? So many times in case of non-monetary perquisite, whatever the tax is coming due on that non-monetary perquisite is borne by the employer. Borne by the employer matlab he is not deducting it from the salary which he is paying in account. He is paying this tax extra from his own pocket. Extra from his own perquisite. So suppose a secondment big person came, I'm giving him salary, etc. Also, I'm giving him RFA as a rent-free accommodation, a very well-furnished rent-free accommodation in high-rise building in Mumbai. So on this rent-free accommodation, whatever tax is coming only on this part is borne by employer. Now focus on this tax element. Tax किसका था? जो भी employee आया, correct? Whose tax was it? Suppose Mr. X was the person who is the employee for whom I'm bearing the tax. Now this tax becomes the perquisite in the hands of Mr. X. You will say, why, ma'am? Because tax किसका था? Tax किससे deduct होना चाहिए था? Mr. X से. From whom I had to deduct the tax? From Mr. X. But I did not deduct it and I paid it from my own pocket as an employer. So Mr. X is getting another benefit in the form of tax. So this tax is also taxable as Mr. X income. An employer who is paying this tax, ये disallow हो जाता है under section 48. The tax amount gets disallowed under section 48(5), and this person gets an exemption under section 10(10)(c). It is a perquisite which is taxable, but then it becomes non-taxable under section 10(10)(cc). This is how it works. So the question comes, जो भी tax employer ने deposit कराया है on non-monetary perquisite for the employee, the tax which is borne by the employer and deposited by the employer on non-monetary perquisite, will Mr. X get the credit of it? The question is, will Mr. X will get the credit of it? The answer is yes, he will get the credit of it because the system is like that. Taxability part, we have made it clear that it becomes exempt under section 10(10)(c), and this here it becomes disallowed under the hands of employer. This is all which you should know. This is covered in PGBP. This is covered under exempt income. Here, the question which is coming in tedious chapter is whether the employee will get the credit. The answer is yes, he will rightfully get the credit of the tax which is deposited by the employer. Any doubts? Perfect. Now, एक चीज सबसे important which I told you that you should ask, nature salary, section 192. Who is the deductor? Employer. Who is the deductee? Employee. What is the tax rate? Average slab rate. What is the threshold limit? There is no threshold limit as such, but the moment it is crossing the basic exemption limit, you have to deduct the tax. The moment the salary income crosses basic exemption limit, you have to deduct the tax. So that's why this is the thing that even if you're paying salary to some of the house support staff at your home, you're not deducting the tax because it might not be crossing the basic exemption limit. Now, when do you have to deduct the tax? The tax has to be deducted at the time of payment. Now, this is very interesting. Dhyan rakna, salary gets taxed on paid or due basis, whichever is earlier. Remember charging section under section 17, but here the tax only has to be deducted at the time of payment. So when as an employer I am making the payment karte time, I will make an entry and I will deduct the tax. Is it clear? Any doubt under the salary head? Points which you have to remember is you can take any income declared by the employee, voluntary declared by the employee. Losses do not have to consider except house property. Sorry, deductions, tax saving investments have to be considered. In case of dual employment, it is recommended that you give the employment it is in at least to one of the employer. Now, next is partner salary, where the partner salary पे TDS deduct होगा section 192 पे? No. Why? Because section 192 covers only the salary which is therefore which is taxable under the head salaries, and partner salaries get taxed under the head PGBP. Clear? Any doubt? Yes, no, quickly. Perfect. So all clear from 192. Now we quickly move forward to section 192A. Yes, Kaushik, it is ultimately exempt for employee. So we'll hop from one section to another to one section to another to quickly cover okay. So now section 192. What does section 192 say? Section 192 talks about premature withdrawal from employee provident fund. So this will cover the types of payment which are in the nature of premature withdrawal from the provident fund. Now we know there is SPF, statutory provident fund, there is RPF, there is URPF. Correct. RPF may you get deduction as an employee, whatever you're making under section 80C, your employer, whatever contribution is he's paying is exempt up to 12% of your salary. Interest is exempt up to 9%. So that is there in the RPF. And generally RPF से जो भी maturity होती है, it is exempt. The interest part is also exempt. All the maturity is also exempt. RPF से and URPF पे vice versa happens. The maturity is completely taxable. Now, this exemption comes with the condition that you cannot exempt it before 5 years. You cannot exempt it before 5 years of continuous service. What is 5 years of continuous service? Now, आज मैंने एक employee को join किया. Today, I joined an employee and I opened my PF account, because what is RPF? It's a provident fund which they operate either through trust and it is recognized from the income tax commissioner. Okay. Now, my contribution began today from the date I joined. Now, if I'm there for 7 years and every month the contribution goes, it's not like that I have an option to make the payments annually in home. Every month the contribution goes and it has to go. Now, after 10 years, when I leave the organization, I can withdraw the amount from the RPF and it is fully accepted. Now you will say, okay, ma'am, you are leaving it after say 2 years, because everyone does not work continuously for 5 years. What should happen? And what should be done in that situation? So to make this 5 years of continuous service, you can shift your PF account from one employer to another employer, provided both of them are recognized. Provided both of them are recognized. So 5 years continuous service criteria would be achieved. Now coming to the point. So if I make a withdrawal before 5 years of continuous service, other than through the condition of health or disability or diseaseness or discontinuance of business, this amount will become taxable. This amount will become taxable. So now the nature of payment is clear. Now let's discuss about the TDS provisions. Who would be the payer here? Who would be the payer? In most cases, it would be employer, but the employer generally, if not running it with the provident fund or the trust, because provident fund से पैसा आ रहा है, employer से नहीं आ रहा है. Okay, employer would be maintaining this provident fund or the trust in most of the cases. Who would be the pay? The employee. Can he be resident, non-resident? Yes, any employee who is withdrawing from the recognized provident fund before 5 years. Does not matter. What is the TDS rate? Here, the TDS has to be deducted at the rate of 10% at the rate of 10%. What is the threshold limit? Is there any threshold limit? Yes, the threshold limit here is if the withdrawal amount is 50,000 or more. 50,000 or more. So if I've taken out 48,000 from the PF, no amount would be tax deductible. I'm not saying it would not be taxable. Threshold का मतलब ये नहीं है कि उतना amount taxable होता है. No, threshold का मतलब है whether it will trigger TDS deduction or not, whether it will trigger tax deduction or not. Okay, so 50,000 or more. Please be careful in reading these limits. Somewhere it would written exceeds 50,000. Somewhere it would be written 50,000 or more. Somewhere it would be written that tax would not be deductible if it is less than 50,000. So less than 50,000 means that 50,000 hua to tax would be deductible. So be very careful in reading the law. Do not interrupt. Do not interrupt a general rule of understanding for all the provisions. Okay. So 50,000 or more, the TDS has to be deducted. Now, this is generally the case of premature withdrawal. Please remember here only we are talking about when the RPF amount is taxable. We're not talking about all the situations. It's not that whenever you will withdraw it, it would be taxable. Only in the case of premature withdrawals, it would be taxable in the hands of employee. And what amount would be taxable? They will go as per the schedule, but from the point of view of deductor, you have to deduct tax at the rate of 10% if the withdrawal amount is 50,000 or more. When the tax has to be deducted? At the time of payment. So when you're making the payment at that time, not when he has made an application of withdrawal, no. When the payment is being made to the employee, then the tax has to be deducted. It does not matter whether you have whether you have withdrawn half amount, full amount. If the amount withdrawn is 50,000 or more, the tax would be deductible. Any queries? Okay. Now we proceed to our next section, which is section 193. Before going to this section, there's one more point you have to remember here. Every deductor will obtain a PAN from deductee so that he can ultimately link the tax deductible to his PAN number, right? Because ऐसे कैसे he will do? He has to have a PAN number of the deductee. तभी तो he can match कि किस PAN का कितना TDS कटा है, right? So if here the employee does not give the PAN number, then the TDS would be deducted at maximum marginal rate. Maximum marginal rate is 42.744%. Okay. Most of the cases may TDS is if the PAN is not provided. Section 206AA comes into picture where it is 20% or more. We'll discuss this in detail. But here you remember if the PAN is not provided, the TDS would be deducted at 42.744%. Okay, which is your maximum marginal rate for that assessment year. All these limits, students, which we are discussing are per pay per financial year. We're not talking about the aggregates of different years, per pay per financial year. Okay, any doubt? Take your time, go through it for 1 minute, no problem. Done? Perfect. Now the sections from now here actually gets interesting. Let's read it. Okay. Next section is section 193, which is interest on securities. Now, these are interest on securities, which is in general, securities can be debentures, bond, etc. All of these are securities. Okay. So all these securities generate interest. This is again a type of income. So the nature of payment here, we're talking about interest on securities. Whenever we are doing TDS, think yourself as a deductor. From that perspective, you have to deduct the TDS. So here, the deductor can be again any person who is paying such interest. Who would be the deductee? Deductee would be resident person. Deductee would be resident person. What is the rate here? The rate here is 10%. What is the time of deduction? And here, now it becomes interesting. The time of deduction is credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Now, going forward, in most of the cases, you will see this credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Now, what does this mean? Credit मतलब मुझे I am a deductor. मुझे आज service मिला या due हुआ. Whenever the amount is due, I make a due entry in the book. So whenever I'm doing that amount, either I'll make a deduction then. Now you will say how, ma'am, for example, so suppose interest has to be paid to Mr. X on bonds or on debentures issued to him. So simple interest account debit. Today I'm doing the due entry. Suppose I have to pay him 1 lakh rupees interest. I have to pay it to Mr. X, 90,000 to TDS payable account, 10,000. This is how the due entry goes. Okay. If something has to be paid at the time of payment, then it would go interest to Mr. X. And when the payment has to be made, then the TDS has to be deductible. This is very important. Why the TDS deduction dates have to be clear. This is very, very important. So to TDS payable account, 10,000. Then when I'm making payment to Mr. X, suppose in 10 days, 15 days, whenever I'm making a payment, Mr. X to bank. And when I'm depositing this TDS with the government, TDS to bank, the narration will go the tax deposited with the government. Simple. Clear? Anyone has any doubts? No. Now you will ask about the threshold limit. Now, as such, there is no threshold limit particularly, but let me just tell you point by point with some exceptions. Exception सबसे पहले बहुत simple है. First exception is इसमें बहुत सारे दिए हैं. I will only cover which I feel अभी is relevant for you. First exception is on government securities. Government securities जितने भी हैं या government bonds हैं, उस पे whatever interest is coming, there would be no TDS. There would be no TDS. ठीक है? Except 8% tax saving bonds, except 8% tax saving bonds, and except 7.75% tax saving bonds, which came in 2018. Bus in pay, you have to deduct the TDS. Who will deduct the TDS? Obviously, the government. Here, otherwise, jitni bhi government securities hai, no TDS. National development bonds, no TDS. In sab pe, there is no TDS. In fact, 54 EC mein, please mark it, 54 EC mein, the two notified bonds, which were Power Finance Corporation Limited bonds and Indian Railways Finance Corporation Limited, इनके bonds पे भी, I'm not talking about NHI and REC, I'm talking about these, इन पे भी आपका there would be no TDS deducted. These are the exceptions. Then the exception is public company. If a public company is making a payment to only about resident individual and HUF, matlab resident individual and HUF have either of them or both of them have invested in the debentures of the public company. Now, public company is making the interest payment, right? They will deduct the TDS only if the interest payment is more than 5,000. So, इधर ही एक threshold limit है, otherwise there is no threshold limit in general. So, अगर एक public company एक दूसरी company को debentures पे interest दे रही है, so then at that time TDS has to be deducted irrespective of the amount. Here the interest should be paid in any mode other than cash. Next, interest is paid to LIC, GIC. What is LIC? LIC, Life Insurance Corporation, General Insurance Corporation, or any other insurance company. These insurance companies invest in huge amount to bonds, to debentures, to lots of government securities, right? Because they want to have a insured, fixed, a less risk-free income, right? So, उनको जो भी इंटरेस्ट पे कर रहे हो उस पे TDS would not be deductible. उस पे TDS would not be deductible. And ये जो गोल्ड सेविंग बॉन्ड्स वाला बताया था ना, उस पे भी TDS would be deductible only if the interest is more than 10,000. Otherwise, no TDS. Okay, clear? Any doubt? यहाँ पे तक. This is about my section 193. Very good. इतना easy हो जाएगा. So अभी तक we have covered what? We have covered section 192, which talks about TDS on salary. Employer will deduct the TDS when he's making the payment to employee, which is in the nature of salary. TDS would be deducted as per average slab rates at the time of payment. 192A में TDS would be deducted by the trust who is making the payment of premature withdrawal of provident fund to any employee, resident, non-resident, does not matter. TDS at the rate of 10% when the amount is 50,000 or more. No PAN, MMR. 193, interest on securities. Any person to a resident person. To a resident person is making a payment, then the TDS has to be deducted at the rate of 10%. Certain exceptions are there for individual HUF. If public company is making the payment of interest, the TDS would be deducted only it is when 5,000 or more. Government securities, DMAT securities, LIC, GSI, इन सबको कोई payment करे उस पे नहीं आएगा. Government securities only if there are two types: 7.75% gold bonds, not gold bonds, 7.75% tax saving bonds and 8% tax saving bonds. 2018 issue. Then the TDS has to be deducted if the payment of interest is more than of 10,000 rupees. The TDS has to be deducted at the time of credit or due, whichever is overdue. Okay, credit or payment, whichever is overdue. Next, we move to section 194. Now, for a long time, this section was in hibernation, but since the time this dividend becomes taxable, it became more strong. This is TDS on dividend. TDS on dividend. That means when you're making the payment in the nature of dividend, section 194 would be triggered. Who is the payer? Obviously, the company who is the deductor or the payer is a domestic company. Is a domestic company. Who is the payee? Who's the payee? A resident person. Any resident person ko, if you're making the payment in the nature of dividend, then the TDS has to be deducted under section 194 at the rate of 10%. At the rate of 10%. As such, no threshold limit, but certain exceptions are there. Exception B. First exception is no TDS would be deducted if the dividend if the dividend amount is not or is up to 5,000. Up to 5,000 means 5,000 पे TDS कटेगा and the dividend is paid to an individual resident, to a resident individual, and it is made in any mode other than cash. Up to 5,000, then no TDS would be deducted. Yani 5,000 से ज़्यादा if I'm making a payment of dividend to an individual as a domestic company, then only I will deduct the TDS. So threshold limit is only for individual payee. Then next is if I'm making the dividend payment to LIC, GIC, in सब के लिए no TDS, no dividend pay, no TDS on such dividend. Any business trust is making a payment, any special purpose vehicle is making dividend payment to its business trust, which is exempt under section 10 clause 23 FC, it is no TDS deductible or tax deductible. Okay, clear? So now this is where we have done till section 194. After a short break, we will come and we will continue from section 194A, which again become more practical to relate and understand. Okay? So post break, we start from 194A, we do 194A, 194B, BB, C, H, all of this would be covered and some other sections. Okay? Any doubt? Viraj, Koshki. Thank you. Back everyone. We were discussing the provisions for TDS and up till now we have discussed section 192, 192A, 193 and 194. Now we move ahead to interest other than securities. Now this is our next type of payment, section 194A. Again, the 5 same questions which we will look forward to answer or to seek the answer. A, which is who is the deductor, deductee? 1 second. Sorry. Yeah. अब यहाँ पे very interesting case scenarios and relatable case scenarios will come now. Okay. Section 194A. This is TDS on interest other than interest on securities, because interest on securities covered under section 193. So first of all, who is the payer? Payer, again, any person, but यहाँ पे now the catch comes. Any person except, एक issue है, except में यहाँ पे. Now I told you at the very beginning of the class that the TAN thing or the TDS thing is very compliance-some for the deductor or the payer. Why so? Because he has to obtain TAN, then he has to deduct tax, then he has to deposit the tax, then he has to file the return, then he has to issue the certificate, he has to take care of any intimation which is coming. So the process is a long bit. And also at the same time, he will hire someone, because all these provisions would be either done by an accountant or a chartered accountant, right? So to remove such compliance burden from small taxpayers who are deductors and who are making such type of payment, because interest payment is a very common payment for any business to make. So what they have done is they have removed individuals and HUF who in the preceding financial year, I'm not talking about the current financial year, here TDS limits are per financial year, right? So in the preceding financial year, we are discussing everything as per the financial year 22-23, right? So in the preceding financial year, if their turnover in case of business is not more than 1 crore, or gross profit is not more than 50 lakhs, then in that case, they do not need to deduct tax, even if they're making the payment in so and so nature exceeding the threshold limit, they do not have to do. And the pure reason is because the government does not want small taxpayers to have a lot of burden of compliances of TDS, which is TAN, returns, etc., etc. This is the simple reason because of which individuals and HUF have been excluded, so that they do not have to waste their resources on such compliances. So if I'm an individual HUF not having business income at all, then I am not covered. I do not have to pay or deduct TDS under section 194A. If I'm an individual having business income and the turnover in the preceding financial year exceeds 1 crore, then in the current financial year, I have to deduct TDS on the income which is in the nature of 194A. I have to deduct TDS in the nature on the payments which are in the nature of section 194A, which is interest on securities. Salaries में premature withdrawal में there was no such limit, and 193 तो वैसे भी securities पे there was nothing as such for individual and HUF. यहाँ पे exceptions are now coming, and this exception of individual and HUF you will see are there in the future sections also, which we'll be discussing, because these are very common types of payments. These are very common types of payment which everyone makes. So that's why they have removed individual and HUF from such compliances. Okay. I have discussed this here in detail. आगे जहाँ पे ये applicable होगा, I'll quickly quote section 194A वाले individuals HUF. Okay. Next, pay. Who would be the payee? Payee can be any resident person. Any resident person. So the deductee can be any resident person. When the what is the rate? The rate here is flat 10%. Flat 10%. Now coming to the threshold limit, and before that, time of deduction. Time of deduction, simple. At the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Now coming to the threshold limit. Now threshold limit is simple. It is 5,000. So if the interest for the year exceeds 5,000, then the TDS has to be deducted. But again, this is a general limit. There comes exceptions also, and there are many exceptions under section 194A. So suppose I've taken a loan from one of my friend. I'm doing business and I'm paying interest of say 100,000, 1 lakh rupees. Then I have to deduct TDS at the rate of 10% under section 194A, provided my turnover in the preceding year crosses 1 crore. Now the limit here is 1 crore for the preceding financial year. Last year 1 crore से ज़्यादा था, इस साल 1 crore से कम है, TDS काटूंगी? Yes. इस साल काटूंगी, next year नहीं काटूंगी. Right? So you have to always consider the preceding turnover, preceding year turnover. Now it may happen, किसी साल it is crossing 1 crore, किसी साल it is less than 1 crore. Does not matter. Preceding financial year, if it is, then I have to deduct the TDS. Also, they're talking about the turnover. They're not saying if tax audit is mandatory or not, or section 44 AD is applicable or not. That is not there. Even if you have a turnover of more than 1 crore and you are filing your return as per section 44 AD in the preceding financial year, still you have to deduct the TDS if you are making the payments in the respective nature. Okay, so that question should come in your mind. Make your mind a questionable mind and a relatable mind, especially when tax concept in itself is so huge. Try relating section by section. Okay. Now, what are the exceptions? First, very common exception is that this limit of 5,000 would be treated as $40,000 if the payment is made by, the limit of 5,000 would be read as 40,000 if the payment is made by bank, cooperative banks, or post office in respect of time deposits. What are time deposits? So one is demand deposits and time deposits. आप bank में जाते हो, you make an FD, that is a time deposit because it's there for a fixed time. Generally, you cannot withdraw it. Similarly, recurring deposits are your time deposits, but saving bank interest is not a time deposit. So time deposit interest, if it is crossing of more than 40,000, the TDS would be deductible only then. 5,000 पे नहीं, 40,000 पे. Okay, and if the interest is paid to a resident senior citizen, this limit would be read as 50,000. Clear? The interest deduction limit is only when the payment is in the nature of interest on time deposit made by bank, cooperative bank, and post offices. Clear? Then, now a question would come in your mind. 1 second. Easy say. This is the first exception which we were discussing. Now a question will come in your mind, ma'am. I made 3 FDs this year. Okay, one FD is with Axis Bank. This way I'm getting interest of 10,000. Another FD is of RBL Bank. This way I'm getting the interest of 15,000. Another FD is of with Kotak Bank. This way I'm getting the interest of 30,000. So, ma'am, Will the TDS be deductible? Now, first of all, I'm telling you, whenever we are doing TDS sections, you have to take yourself from the point of deductor. Deductor per pay per financial year limit. So Axis Bank, RBL Bank, and Kotak Bank are the ones who have to deduct the TDS. It does not matter to them whether you have interest of whatever amount. If they are paying interest of more than a certain limit, then the TDS has to be deducted. So Axis Bank, RBL Bank, and Kotak Bank here are not liable to deduct TDS because the payment of interest in that financial year to you has not crossed 40,000. Simple. Per P. आपको 80,000 इंटरेस्ट क्रेडिट हो रहा है, 90,000 इंटरेस्ट क्रेडिट हो रहा है, जितना मर्जी हो, does not matter. Per pay from the perspective of Axis Bank, I have to see whether the TDS has to be deducted or not. If yes, and when would be yes, when it is crossing more than 40,000. Simple. Now let's change the situation. आपने instead of these three FDs with three different banks, now you opened FD with Axis Bank in three different branch. One in Kerala branch, one in Mumbai, one of our Mumbai branch, and one of our Delhi branch. You same but है Axis Bank के साथ 10,000, 15,000, and 30,000. Now a question comes whether the tax would be deducted or not. The answer is yes. The limit is per pay. It has to be seen from the Axis Bank point of view because Axis Bank in present scenario is following CBS system, which is computerized banking software, where all the accounts per SSC is taken into one head. So each branch, even if working independently, even if they have separate TAN numbers, which can happen here, but the TDS has to be deducted, even if per branch the interest is less than 10,000. But for Axis Bank, as a pay, they are making you payment of interest of more than 40,000. So they have to deduct the TDS. Simple. Clear? CBS is not computerized, it's co-branching banking solutions. My bad. Okay. Clear? Ye wala part clear? Now, I told you interest has to be, TDS has to be deducted when credited or paid, whichever is earlier. Okay. When the amount is credited or paid, whichever is earlier. Now, banking में क्या होता है? They make the amount of interest FD पे interest due होता रहता है रोज. ठीक है, थोड़ा थोड़ा इंटरेस्ट वो रोज का ड्यू करते हैं because they account for कि if suppose a person comes today and want to mature the amount, तो हमें आज तक का इंटरेस्ट देना पड़ेगा, correct? But ultimately it get reflected in your account after a quarter or after an year, whatever is the banking system going on. So the question is, I told you credit or paid, whichever is earlier. So you will ask कि मैम वो तो हर रोज एक अकाउंट में वो इंटरेस्ट को अकाउंट फॉर कर रहे हैं, राइट? They're accounting for that interest every day. So do they have to deduct the TDS every day? The answer is no. A CBDT clarification came here that they would deduct the TDS on the day when they have actually credited that interest or made the interest entry into the person's account. Person के account में जब entry जाएगा, on that day they have to deduct the TDS. Is it clear? Sure. Any doubt in interest on banks? Next part, there is no TDS there is no TDS which has to be deducted on saving bank interest. An exception is no saving bank interest पे TDS. Saving bank interest is taxable. Everything is happening, but no TDS on saving bank interest. Clear? Interest है 40,000 or 50,000 or if they are paying you, they will not deduct the TDS. Next, no TDS to be deductible or no tax to be deductible, I should say, when you are receiving interest on income tax refund. Income tax refund आता है, उस पे you get interest. ठीक है? उस पे भी there has to be no TDS. Then next exception is no TDS is required to be deducted or no tax is required to be deducted if interest is paid to bank, cooperative banks, LIC, UTIs, financial corporations. No TDS is required to be deducted if, or no tax is required to be deducted if the interest is paid to bank, cooperative banks, LIC, UTIs, financial corporations. आपको अगर बैंक को कैसे इंटरेस्ट देते हैं? आपने लोन लिया, कार लोन लिया, इंटरेस्ट obviously बैंक को पे करोगे in form of EMIs. No TDS is deducted. There's a reason, that's why you're not deducting the TDS. But certainly this exception, students, is not applicable to NBFCs. NBFCs, if you're paying interest, the TDS has to be deducted. If you might not take care of it because as an individual at HUF, you might be having salary income or you might not be having a business income, business turnover exceeding the limits in the preceding financial year. That's why you might not be deducting. But NBFCs, if interest payment has to be made, the TDS has to be deducted. Now, this has been in representations by NBFCs for like a lot of time. They've made representations to the government कि हमें भी इस list में ले आओ, but अभी तक नहीं आया. Okay. Then partnership interest, just like partnership salary pay, आपका it is not deductible under section 192. Here, if interest is paid by the partnership firm to the partner, TDS would not be deductible. TDS would not be deductible. Another thing, बहुत सारे थे छोटी मोटी चीजें, but I am covering the common one. Okay. Yeah. Another thing which you have to remember, when a cooperative society makes a payment to its member for any interest. So if a cooperative society is making a payment of interest to its member or to other cooperative societies, they do not have to deduct the TDS. Similarly, यहाँ पे भी एक exception आएगा. Cooperative banks, if making payment to cooperative societies, they do not have to deduct the TDS. But recently, one amendment came whereby they said if these cooperative banks and these cooperative society, which we are talking about, if they have a turnover in the preceding financial year of more than 50 crores, if they have a turnover in the preceding financial year for more than 50 crores and the interest paid would exceed during the year of 50,000, then TDS has to be deducted. So the cooperative bank or cooperative society who is making the payment, their turnover in the preceding financial year is more than 50 crores. And if the interest which they'll be paying to that payee crosses 50,000 in case of senior citizen and 40,000 in case of non-senior citizens, then they have to deduct the TDS. This is one exception. Uske alawa, whatever is given is very general. You can have it a read. Okay. Any doubt under section 194A? This is all from my side for 194A. Okay, yeah. एक और CBDT का clarification है which is given in box. I'll open it. तो बहुत टाइम ऐसा होता है properties gets disputed, and not even in case of properties, also generally also when cases happen, sometimes stakes are involved, to which High Court in an interim order generally ask from one of the defendants or one of the defendants to deposit, or plan to sometimes to deposit a certain amount as FD. ठीक है, वो बैंक का नहीं है, but it's in the nature of the or in the interest of that law कि आप एक अमाउंट डिपॉजिट करा दो जिसका जनरली वो FD ले लेते हैं. ओके, कि कल को if any compensation arises, it can be taken care of, और sometimes disputed amount है उसका वो FD करा लेते हैं. ठीक है, अब इस FD पे तो इंटरेस्ट मिलेगा, राइट, बट ये अमाउंट किसको बिलोंग करता है? इट विल ओनली बी क्लियर एट द एंड ऑफ द केस. It would only be clear at the end of the case, and the case might go for years, months, we don't know, but FD पे अब इंटरेस्ट मिलता जाएगा. तो who would be the pay? यहाँ पे बैंक जिसके साथ FD हुआ है वो इंटरेस्ट दे तो रहा है, बट किसको दे रहा है? वो तो बस एक्यूमुलेट हो रहा है. So circular came and it got clear that until and unless the dispute is resolved and it is clear to whom this amount belongs, the TDS would not be deductible. The TDS would not be deductible. TDS would be deductible once it is clear that who will ultimately receive this FD amount at its interest. Then the bank will deduct the TDS and make the payment to the person. Clear? So यहाँ पे credit वाला part नहीं जाएगा. Okay, that's clarification came from the circle. Rest is very basic. You can give a read. FD RD wala concept is important, which generally you should take care of. Any doubt? $50 lakhs in case of gross receipts, 1 crore in case of turnover. So अगर वो professional है तो आप gross receipts देखेंगे last year का. अगर वो business है तो generally आप turnover या sales देखते हैं. Okay? Perfect. Now let's proceed to the next section. Next section talks about winnings from lotteries and horse races. Now, this is one of a very interesting section. Section 194B and BB are covered together because hai dono different sections, but the aspect is totally same. Section 194B talks about winnings from crossword puzzles, lotteries, etc. And 194BB talks about winnings from horse races. Everything else is same. The tax rates are same. They're covered. The TDS rates are same. Their limits are same. So they covered it together. Okay. So first here, who would be the pair? Now pair isme kaun hoga? Or the deductor? Who would be the deductor or the pair? Obviously the person who is distributing the lottery or giving that winning, that would be the pair. Who would be the pay? The person who has won it. Horse races पे वो जहाँ पे आप bet लगाते हो, they are the pair ultimately who will give you the winning. Okay, pay can be any person. Here, resident, non-resident, everyone is covered. Any person. Okay, payer can also be any person. Pay can also be any person. What is the rate? Rate is here flat 30%. And these are even taxed at the rate of 30% as casual income, if you remember. So the rate here is flat 30%. When the TDS has to be deducted? When the payment exceeds, threshold is when the payment exceeds 10,000. Now, students, एक चीज याद रखना, these threshold limits are the limits which are triggering TDS. So suppose the winnings of 15,000, तो पूरे 15,000 पे 30% कटेगा, not on 5,000. Similarly, 194A may be if in case of FD the interest crosses 40,000, suppose it is 70,000, the 70,000 pay pura 10% would be deductible, not on 30,000. Okay, so if the triggering amount gets crossed on the entire amount the TDS is deducted except in few sections. So threshold यानी अगर winning आपका 10,000 से ज्यादा हुआ, more than 10,000, not 10,000 or more. यहाँ पे एक typical question comes on and again, which is what about winnings in kind? अब suppose करो लॉटरी में किसी का कार्ड निकला. Okay, now I have organized a lottery and उसमें the winning was car, a Maruti car. Now इस पे TDS कैसे काटूंगी? Car value is 11 lakh. I am the person who has organized that lottery, and Mr. Raju is again the person. Raju is very lucky today. Okay, he is the person who has got this car. Now, how will I deduct the TDS on this car? I don't know, because in the point 11 lakh, अब मैं कार का टायर तो अपने पास नहीं रख सकती as a TDS deductible. But since the car is of 11 lakh, I have to deduct TDS of 1,10,000. It is my responsibility. It's my responsibility. So the law says when the winnings are in kind or partly in cash in kind, and the cash part is less to recover the or meet the liability of the tax deduction, then the person has to ensure before releasing the winning. Who has to ensure? I have to ensure that before releasing the winning, the tax has been paid in respect of winnings. The tax has been paid in respect of winnings. अब ये कैसे इंश्योर करूंगी? मैं राजू को बोलूंगी कि भाई you will get the car only when you deposit this 1,10,000. I will say sorry, not 1,10,000. Actually, the TDS would be not 10%. 3,30,000 आएगा. Sorry. I will say to Raju that go first and deposit this 30% and give me the receipt. Then only I will give you the car. Okay, deposit this tax. You will not deposit it as tax. You will deposit it as advance tax. Or I will take 3,30,000 from Raju. I will deposit it. Then only I will release it. So either way, I will not give the car until and unless this 3,30,000 is deposited. Now, if I do so, then a penalty under section 271C would be attracted. Okay, so as a person, I have to ensure that the tax on this winning is received by the government before I give this winning to them. Clear? Now 194BB में, how does this work? Similarly, winning horse races पे आपने bet लगाया. Who, if the horse race wins, your horse race win, you get the winnings. Correct? You get the winnings. Now, who would pay the TDS on it? Obviously, the person who's the bookmaker, bookie. Generally, आप इसे bookie कहते हो, right? They would pay the winnings पे amount, and it would be paid only on the winnings, not after setting of the losses. Suppose करो एक bet लगाया, आपको 30,000 का win हुआ, दूसरे bet में आपको 15,000 का loss हुआ, फिर तीसरे bet में आपको 40,000 का winning हुआ, फिर आपको 50,000 का loss हुआ, फिर 10,000 का winning हुआ. So I will not take the net amount and then deduct the TDS. No, it would not be कि भाई 30 plus 40, 70 minus 50, 20, 30. हाँ, I will not say कि 15,000 आया तो I will not deduct the TDS. No, जितना भी winnings का total है, which is my 80,000, उस पे I have to deduct the TDS. Clear? 194BB clear? 194B clear? This is all you have to remember. These students, these examples which I am discussing generally comes as case laws, generally comes as questions or a checking point. And also the provisions should be very much clear to you because this helps you in tax audit a lot. Okay, Koshki, okay. Okay, simple. 194B, PB clear, and most of the situations may this question comes of winning in cash and kind ka. Make sure that you write the provision correct. You write that the person has to ensure that the tax is paid by the winner. वो विनर से ही लेगा, खुद के पॉकेट से नहीं देगा, बिकॉज खुद के पॉकेट से दिया तो वो एक्स्ट्रा कैलकुलेशन हो जाएगी इंटरपोलेशन की, बिकॉज देन 1,10,000 प्लस 3,30,000 फिर उस पर टीडीएस बनना चाहिए था, तो वो मत करना, ठीक है? ओके, डोंट डू दैट. Now what we are going to start is one of my favorite sections and everyone's favorite section. इसके लिए please everyone focus on the screen. So now we are starting with section 194C. इसमें इतने case studies हैं, इतने case laws हैं, इतना interesting section है, what to tell. Okay. So section 194C talks about, be very careful, the deductor. Who would be the deductor or the payer? I am writing interchangeably these names so that you remember it. The payer would be any person except same. The payer would be any person except individual and HUF having turnover less than 50, turnover less than 1 crore or gross receipts less than 50 lakhs in case of profession in the preceding financial year. You have to write this pura. You will not write except individual and HUF. No, except individual HUF who in the preceding financial year in case of business has turnover less than 1 crore, in case of profession has gross receipts less than 50 lakhs. ठीक है, उसके अलावा everyone has to deduct the TDS under section 194C when the payment is in the nature of contract. All types of contract payment, no, we'll see whatever comes. Contract. Who would be the deductee? Deductee would be any resident person. Now यहाँ पे I am Mr. A. I have given a contract to Mr. B. Mr. A has given a contract to Mr. B. Mr. A, आपको you know is a deductor. Mr. B is a deductee, or you can say payer pay. Correct? This is what I have taught you right now. Oh, you say, हाँ इसमें क्या नया मैम, right? No. Who would be the contractor here? Mr. A would be the contractor or Mr. B would be the contractor? Mr. A has given a contract to Mr. B to whitewash his office. Then Mr. B is the contractor. So here you are making the payments to contractor. It's not payment made by the contractor. Section covers payment made to the contractor. B is the contractor and A is the contractee. So please be careful while using this term. Who is a deductor? Deductor here in case would be the contractee and not the contractor. And deductee would be the contractor. Clear? Okay. Now, what is the rate? The rate here is, the rate only this particular section depends upon the payee. If you're making the payment to individual HUF, the rate is 1%. If you're making the payment to other than individual HUF, the rate could be 2%. So Mr. A or Mr. B, when your payments hoga, Mr. A, whatever payments he's making for contract, it would be deductible at 1%. But suppose Mr. A is making payment under section 194C to ABC Limited, then he will deduct the TDS at the rate of 2%. Clear? Now, here in this section 194C, contractor payment made to contractor also covers and payment made to further subcontractors also are covered. So now if Mr. B subcontracts the work to Mr. C, so Mr. A has given contract to Mr. B, who will deduct TDS under section 194C, and similarly Mr. B, who has subcontracted the work to Mr. C, he will also deduct the TDS under section 194C. Now, next question which we see for is the threshold limit. इधर इंटरेस्टिंग है थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट, प्लीज ध्यान देना. थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट इज 30,000 पर बिल, 30,000 per bill, or 1 lakh in aggregate. If 1 lakh in aggregate is due per financial year or paid per financial year, or a single bill comes from the person and that is exceeding 30,000, then the TDS has to be deducted. Now let's take a few examples. If a single payment is 30,000, more than 30,000, then TDS has to be deducted, or if in aggregate during that financial year, his account is credited or paid for more than 1 lakh. ठीक है. अब एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं. एबीसी ने पेमेंट करा एक्स को, एक कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को, ड्यूरिंग द प्रीवियस ईयर 21-22. दिस यू कैन टेक इट as 22-23 for your exam purpose. ठीक है. This is 22, this is 22, this is 22, and this is 23. Okay. Now we have to deduct, see when the TDS has to be deducted. Now, first payment is made on 1st May 2022. The TDS has to be deducted at the time of due, or I'll write it. Time limit here is also either at the time of credit or paid, whichever is earlier. ठीक है. Now 20,000 का first मैंने payment करा on 1st May 2022. Whether the TDS would be deducted, the answer is no. Why? Because 20,000 less than 30,000 है and X का account भी अभी has not crossed 1 lakh. Next payment करा 25,000 का, TDS deduct होगा? No. Next payment करा 28,000 का, TDS deduct होगा? No. Because it is coming less than 30 and अभी तक यहाँ पे total has also not crossed 1 lakh. Now next payment करा 1st March को of 30,000. The moment this 30,000 का payment is done, 30 plus 20 plus 25 plus 28, 1,03,000. उसका अकाउंट कितने से मेरा क्रेडिट हो चुका है? 1,03,000 से. That means that on this payment the TDS is liable to be deducted, and not of 30,000 का 1%. टोटल जितना भी अभी तक गया है जिसपे TDS नहीं कटा है, the total amount on which TDS is not deducted, on that entire amount the TDS would be deducted. So अभी तक किसी पे deduct नहीं हुआ, so 1,03,000 पे 1%, 1,030 would be deducted, and while making the payment of this 30,000, he will deduct TDS of 1,030, because अभी क्या हुआ, 1 lakh से अकाउंट ज्यादा हो गया, एक्सीड हो गया, and the moment it exceeds 1 lakh, entire amount पे TDS कटेगा, and वो 30,000 minus 1,030, which is 28,970 पे पेमेंट होगा. Clear? Now इसी lines में we'll take another example. Let's take another example. Payments made by ABC Limited to Mr. Manoj, a contractor. First bill due and paid, which is of 36,000. Then next bill came 27,000. Then next bill came 21,000. Then next bill came 42,000. Now let's discuss the TDS deduction. Now time of deduction, students, is very, very, very crucial. And as an auditor also, you should pay attention to the time of deductions. Okay, so the time of deduction is credit or pay, whichever is earlier, but TDS would be triggered only if single bill crosses 30,000 or the aggregate in the account during that financial year is more than 1 lakh. ठीक है. अब फर्स्ट पेमेंट करा, आई विल डिडक्ट द TDS of 1%, 36,000 में से I will deduct 1% and I will 36,000 minus 1% 360. I'll make the payment of 35,640. Clear? Next, 27,000. Will I deduct the TDS? No. Why? Because single bill is also not crossing 30,000 and अभी तक यहाँ पे भी 1 lakh से ज्यादा नहीं हुआ. So no TDS, full 27,000 का payment मिलती है. Now on this 21,000, will I deduct TDS? No, because यहाँ तक aggregate 36 plus 27 plus 21 is not crossing 1 lakh or in. Yeah, it is not crossing 1 lakh. So यहाँ पे भी full 21,000 का payment किया. अब next जब 42,000 का bill आया, what is the situation now? 36 plus 27 plus 21 plus 42. टोटल क्रेडिट हो गया उस अकाउंट में 1,26,000 का, बट टीडीएस खाली कितने पे कटा है? 36,000 पे. इज इट द केस ऑफ लेट डिडक्शन? नो, बिकॉज यहाँ पे ड्यू था ही नहीं टीडीएस काटना. यहाँ पे देयर वाज नो लायबिलिटी टू डिडक्ट टीडीएस, सो दिस इज नॉट अ लेट डिडक्शन. ट्रिगरिंग हैज हैपेंड हियर ओनली द मोमेंट द बिल क्रॉस. It is also crossing 30,000, but at the same time it is crossed. The account is exceeding 1 lakh. So now यहाँ पे कितना TDS कटेगा? 420? No. How much would be the TDS amount? 27 पे भी TDS नहीं कटा, 21 पे भी TDS नहीं कटा, and obviously 42 पे भी TDS नहीं कटा. So on 90,000, 1% would be deducted, which is 900, and the net payment from 42,000 would be made. Is this part clear? Now this is very important. Students make mistakes यहाँ पे. एक बारी please go through this example. If you have any doubt, tell me, then only I'll proceed. Good. Okay. Good. ये चीज का ध्यान you have to take care, especially when in case of tax audits. वहां पे you have to see whether there is a late deduction or not. तो इसको आप late deduction नहीं कहेंगे. I'm saying again and again, when this 900 the TDS is deducted, it's not, when this 900 of TDS is deducted, it's not a case of late deduction in any situation. Okay. Clear? Perfect. Then one thing you have to remember, that individual and HUF, I told you, will not deduct TDS if in the preceding financial year their turnover is less than 1 crore, or gross receipt in case of profession is less than 50 lakhs, correct? But also individual and HUF will not deduct TDS if they are making payment in the nature of personal nature. पर्सनल नेचर का अगर मैं कुछ कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल पेमेंट दे रही हूँ, then I will not deduct the TDS. Then I will not deduct the TDS. Now personal nature means खुद ऑफिस का काम नहीं है, बिजनेस से रिलेटेड नहीं है, पर्सनल है. सपोज आई एम अ पर्सन जिसका लास्ट ईयर टर्नओवर था 4 करोड़ का, बट आई हैव मेड कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल पेमेंट ऑफ 1,50,000 फॉर वाइट वॉश ऑफ माई होम. So that is of personal nature. So that would not come here. Now again, as in I'm saying, the curiosity of what is work contract, what is contract, you must be thinking, right? You must be thinking, ma'am, what actually is contract? वो तो clear करो. Now contract can be, यहाँ पे section 194C can cover contractual payments of all type, work contract, labor contracts, or contracts of construction. All of that types of payments are covered. So any contract of carrying on work or any contract of labor is covered here, or in general maintenance activities. Construction contracts are also covered here. So these are all my payments which are covered under 194C. But what is actually work? I said any contract of carrying a work, but what actually work means? work includes advertising. Now यहाँ पे एक एक payment पे we'll focus. Advertising. Now what is advertising? Advertising मतलब अब मुझे newspaper में I want to print an ad. So I will go to a media house. I will pay them a certain amount and I will deduct the TDS at 1%, 2%, whatever the case is. Correct? Second thing also can happen that I, instead of going to media house, I cannot directly go to Hindustan office of Hindustan's office, Hindustan Times office, and say, okay, I want to print an ad. I will either contract a media house. So suppose I am Mr. X. Now I go to an agency, advertising agency. Pay I will go. I will pay them 3 lakh rupees that I want a front page ad of my business in Hindustan Times. An advertising agency would pay to Hindustan Times. Now, advertising agency ऐसे तो बैठे नहीं है. Obviously, they're also working, so they will pay suppose 2,80,000 by keeping their share to Hindustan Times for this side. But together, I'm discussing some clarifications also, so please focus. Book में मत देखना, okay? Now, I am making the payment to whom? Advertising agency. अब advertising agency आगे Hindustan Times को जितना payment देता है, it does not matter to me. What matters is advertisement happens, right? I am making the payment in the nature of advertising work. So I will deduct TDS under section 194C when I'm making the payment to advertising agency. Clear? Right. Now, advertising agency, when they further make the payment to Hindustan Times, they will not deduct TDS under 194C. No. Wahan pe CBDT has made a clarification that here 194C would not be attracted again. Here contractual payment would not be attracted. So now you will ask if, ma'am, ये जो 20,000 का profit है या commission है जो एडवर्टाइजिंग एजेंसी ने रखा है अपने पास, व्हाट इज दैट? उस इनकम पे क्या टैक्सेबिलिटी होगी, क्या टीडीएस डिडक्टिबिलिटी होगी? दिस वैसे तो इट वुड बी बेटर इफ वुड डिस्कस अंडर 194H, बट लेट्स फोकस हियर on this 20,000. What could happen, whether this would be 194H and now Hindustan Times have to deduct TDS under commission? The answer is, if advertising agency is not working purely for Hindustan Times, they are working independently on principle basis, okay, then this 20,000 is a profit for advertising agency. There is no commission and no 194H would be attracted. But had been advertising agency working purely on agent basis for Hindustan Times, then 194H would have been attracted. Okay, so दो payments है यहाँ पे. One is what I am paying or Mr. X is paying to advertising agency, 194C, because advertising is covered here. Second payment which advertising agency is paying to Hindustan Times never would come under 194C, and it will also not come under 194H if it is on principal to principal basis. Clear? Okay. Next type of work which is covered here is broadcasting and telecasting, including production of programs for such broadcasting or telecasting. Now, first of all, broadcasting and telecasting में difference क्या है? Do we know what is the difference between broadcasting or telecasting? Okay, make an attempt, students. No problem. Try to make an attempt. What is the difference between broadcasting and telecasting? Okay, so broadcasting means something when it is broadcasted through radios, through audio vision. Telecasting is through video and audio. So televisions पे generally what comes is telecasting. Broadcasting is when it comes to radio. So if I have to make in any television program on telecasting rights, उसका मैं copyrights दूंगी. तो telecasting में आ गया, broadcasting का broadcasting में आ गया, including production of programs for such broadcasting or telecasting. Now, generally, what happens? You know how the system of broadcasting and telecasting works, and even advertising. Please pay attention यहाँ पे. Broadcasting and telecasting, there are production houses. You know this common, few of the common production houses are like Yash Raj, Dharma, Dharmatic, your Firefox. All of these are your production houses. They give copyrights to these tele channels, or the rights are purchased by them. Tele channels or broadcasting channels. Okay. Exclusive rights are purchased by them. So these types of payment, which on getting the copyright, if the telecaster or the broadcaster gives to the production house, will that be included in 194C or not? This is what there has been a many debates and case laws on. But then an ultimate clarification came that if let's take an example. Abhi piche, there was a situation where there were lots of mythological serials were coming on TV, right? Sony पे आ रहा था, सब टीवी पे आ रहा था, Star Plus पे आ रहा था. No, Z thought कि we also need a mythological serial. So they went to one of the production house. So they went to YRF. Okay. They said that we want you to produce a mythological serial where this should be the storyline, this should be the running time, this should be the characters. So ultimately, they are giving the specifications to YRF. Okay, this is how we want you to make this particular show. So if the show is prepared by YRF and the copyrights are given to Z ultimately for telecasting, then whatever payment Z is making to YRF would be deductible under 194C because it's for production of program. But here, one thing which I've focused again and again is specifications, that it is being made as per the specifications of the channel. One second. So here again and again, I'm saying that this is made as per the specification of channels. But suppose Z goes to YRF to produce a mythological show, but YRF has already had a show ready, but they were just looking for a telecaster to take the rights, and they give the show as it is to Z. Then in that case, it's just a purchase of copyrights. It's just a purchase of copyrights. Us case mein 194C would not be attracted. So the point here you have to focus is when it is as per the specifications, then they have to make the TDS deduction under section 194C. But if it is not as per the specification, just a common normal purchase of copyrights, then 194C would not be attracted. Clear? Similarly, if I give you an example of advertising agency, I told you एक advertising करना है, ठीक है? So suppose for that the Hindustan Times, अब मैंने direct payment किया Hindustan Times को, okay? Now Hindustan Times hires Shah Rukh Khan for that ad, okay? Shah Rukh Khan का photo लगेगा in that ad. So Hindustan Times hired Shah Rukh Khan. अब ultimately, I am making the payment to Hindustan Times, which is deductible under 194C for advertising. But Hindustan Times making a payment to Shah Rukh Khan to get featured in that ad is not 194C. It is a payment made to him in the capacity of an artist. And that item is covered under 194J. So remember these chains and nature and payments, nature of payments. It's not a blind rule which you have to follow. Clear? Then next, Let's understand the next point. Work includes advertising, clear. Work includes broadcasting, telecasting, including production of programs for such broadcasting and telecasting, clear. Third is carriage of goods or passengers by any mode of transport other than by railways. Carriage of goods or passengers matlab, I am making the payment. I shifted my office from Delhi to Mumbai. So office का जितना भी goods था, जितना भी सामान था, I got it from Delhi to Mumbai on a transport. So I'm making a payment to that transport person because for carriage of goods, that's a contractual payment which I'm making to the transport agency or the transportation company that would be covered under 194C, and I have to deduct the TDS if the payment crosses 30,000 or 1 lakh in aggregate, respectively. Clear? Now, what is carriage of passengers? मैंने plan किया. For the office, let's everyone go to Goa. ठीक है? उसके लिए I booked a bus. Now I'm making the payment to that bus agency for carrying the passengers from Mumbai to Goa. Then in that case, that payment is a contractual payment. But this again, students, you have to remember it's only when they are not in personal nature. So if I am booking a bus to carry the passengers from one wedding venue to another wedding venue, then it is for personal nature. I will not deduct this. Now I'm making the payment for carriage of passengers. I am asking that person, come up with your bus, bring the person who will drive the bus, take us to the venue or take us to Goa. Okay, right? Only when the payments are in the nature of business, correct? That is carriage of passengers. But suppose I hire a bus, I will self-drive it and I will take my employees to Goa. Will that hiring charges be 194C? No, that would be 194I in the nature of rent. So you have to see this contract is for full carriage of passengers. There would be a proper service in the nature of carriage of passengers. Okay, so that has to be taken care of. Carriage of goods or carriage of passengers, railways nahi aayega. So if I'm taking my employees to Goa through train, I'm making the payment to Indian Railways. I will not deduct the TDS. Now you will ask, if you're making the payment to travel agent for employee travel, uspe bhi there has been a clarification. I think it's covered here or not, but I read it today that there has been a clarification because TDS would not be deducted if I'm making the payment for one of my employee business travel. TDS would not be deducted if I'm making it to a travel agent or a airline company. Why so? Because the privity to contract is between my employee and that agent company. But yes, if I chartered a plane for them and then we go for that chartered, I have to pay the money. Okay. Another exception, students, here under point C is, so with each point I'm discussing the clarification. Another exception is that if I make a payment to a good transport agency and they give me a declaration that we are a small transport agency and we have less than 10 trucks, 10 or less than 10 trucks during the year, less than 10 trucks, or I should say 10 or less than 10 trucks at any time during the year, and furnish a declaration for this and gives me its PAN number, then I will not deduct TDS. What did I say? If a transport agency is giving me a declaration that they have 10 or less than 10 trucks during the year and is giving me the PAN number, then I will not deduct the TDS even if the payment is made for more than 30,000. Okay, clear? This is another part related to this. Now work में हमने क्या क्या पढ़ा? Advertising, broadcasting, telecasting, carriage of goods and passengers by any mode other than railways, and in सब में हमने exceptions and clarification भी साथ साथ cover करा. Next work में cover catering. Now catering मतलब खाने पीने का. So if I have a function, an annual day at my office, उसके लिए I got caterers. उसके लिए whatever payment I'll make, I will deduct the TDS, provided I'm assuming that in the previous year my turnover was more than 1 crore. Okay. Now, if I have a function at home, there's a marriage function, I'm getting the caterers, I'm making them the payment. Will I deduct the TDS? The answer is no, because 194C में personal nature payments by individual HUF are not covered. Clear? यहाँ तक किसी को doubt? Because last point is extremely important. ये जो जितनी भी clarifications हमने students करी हैं, they generally come as case laws, case studies. So please focus on these clarification as and when we go. So next and the most important definition of work में जो issue आता है is when I am asking someone to prepare or supply me a particular product as per my specification, and the material for it is either provided by me or my very close relative, which is covered under section 48(2), then that is also the payment in nature of work. My example was simple. So I want my office furniture to be purchased. What can happen? ये ध्यान से सुनना, ये पॉइंट मैंने बहुत लोगों को देखा क्लियर नहीं होता. What can happen for office furniture? I want my office furniture to be made. One thing is, I go to a furniture shop, I want a sofa to be done for office, okay? Because personal to cover in yoga, right? So I want a sofa for office. I go to the furniture shop, I purchase it and come. So that is not a contractual work. Why? Because it's a sale purchase transaction. Usme 194C would not be attracted, right? But now I went to sofa wala, the same sofa house, and I said him that everything is fine on this sofa. I will purchase it, what you have made. Just change the color of the sofa, as in change the material of the sofa from blue to green. I want a green color sofa. He did it. Next day I went and picked it up. Again, 194C would not be attracted. But now I ask a person, a furniture wala, Mr. Ghanshyam, to prepare a sofa for me, for which I will provide him the material. I will provide him all the furniture, the wooden aspect, the cover which has to come, the foam which has to be used, only the spare small keys he can use of his. Everything would be as per my specification. The material is provided by me. Then in that case, it's a case of work, and hence the payment, whatever I'm making payment to Ghanshyam for that furniture making, for that manufacturing or supply of the furniture, would be covered under 194C. Material mera and specifications made, both things has to be true, then only 194C would be attracted. Okay? ऐसा नहीं है कि मटेरियल घनश्याम मुझसे अगर मटेरियल परचेज करके फिर बना रहे और फिर मुझे मटेरियल का पैसा अलग से लगा रहे, then also 194C is. The point is material मेरा होना चाहिए, specifications मेरी होनी चाहिए. The first two scenarios which I discussed for sofa would not cover here. Okay? So, but the next two which I did, this one would be covered here. Material मेरा, specifications मेरा, 194C would be attracted. Okay? अब वो सपोज करो घनश्याम जी मुझसे मटेरियल परचेज करते हैं, one second. घनश्याम जी, okay. मटेरियल परचेज करते हैं, उसके बाद वो फिर मटेरियल फिर से मुझे बिल कर देते हैं, एंड दैट मटेरियल कैन बी परचेज बाय मी और एनी पर्सन अंडर सेक्शन 48(2) हु इज रिलेटेड टू मी. ओके, अब वो बिल देते हैं मुझे, उन्होंने मटेरियल मुझसे परचेज किया पहले और फिर उस मटेरियल का पैसा लगाया, मटेरियल एंड लेबर. तो मैं टीडीएस किस पे काटूंगी? सिर्फ लेबर कंपोनेंट पे, इफ इट इज गिवन सेपरेटली. अगर टोटल सोफा का अमाउंट दिया हुआ है, नथिंग इज गिवन, लेबर कंपोनेंट कितना है, मटेरियल कंपोनेंट कितना है, तो टोटल पे. ओके, सो मटेरियल लेबर कंपोनेंट अगर सेपरेटली गिवन, then labor component only TDS would be deductible. Otherwise, on the entire component, the TDS would be deductible. So this you have to remember. Material mera, labor specifications meri 194C attracted. So now If we conclude, work में क्या क्या आया? And supply of labor is also 194C, which we discussed. जैसे security guard को make payment कर security guard companies को, that is 194C. So work में what we covered? We covered advertising, broadcasting. These also includes work में ये सब भी आएंगे. Advertising, broadcasting, telecasting, including production of programs, carriage of goods or passengers by any mode of transport, catering, manufacturing or supplying a product as per the specifications and material provided by the customer. Clear? उसके अलावा consolidated bill वाला part clear? Okay. Vehicle taken on rent clear? किसी normal restaurant में जाना is not catering. It is not catering. Catering is for an event, for an occasion, for a function. Then payment to transporter wala part, remember? Yeah, few case laws which I have to discuss here, which is left. Warehouse. मैंने warehouse, ये आगे भी आएगा वैसे, एक warehouse या एक godown को rent पे लिया for storage. I have taken a warehouse or godown on rent for storage. किसी से I have a contract. Okay, I have taken a warehouse or godown for rent for storage of my material. So I have to deduct TDS under 194I because that's rent. You will see. But if I make payment for cold chain facility, if I make payment for cold chain facility, मैं किसी का cold storage, I'll say, cold storage use कर रही हूँ. Cold storage is what? That is also proper big space, but it is temperature regulated. Everything has this taken care of, and now उनको cold storage charges देती हूँ per month or per annum. Is that 194C? Yes, that is 194C because that's a contract whereby he will provide a proper services not only for that space but also for the temperature maintenance, also to ensure that every condition is in place so that the goods do not get destroyed. So that is a proper service. AC maintenance charges, lift maintenance charges 194C में cover होते. Guard agency से मैंने guards लिए, उसके लिए I will make the payment for 194C. Similarly, supply of labor के लिए 194C. But recruitment agencies, students, जैसे these recruitment portals are there, उनको if I'm making payment, वो supply of labor में नहीं आएंगे, वो technical में भी आ सकते हैं 194, वो technical as a managerial में भी आ सकते हैं, वो 194J में जाएंगे because वहां पे it's not supply of labor, it's just a services of recruitment which they have provided to me. ठीक है? So all of this is what 194C is about. Sponsorship fees 194C, advertising ही है एक तरीके से 194C. ठीक है? Any other doubt? So this is all from my part from 194C. I think I've covered everything. I'll quickly revise 194C. 194C is when a contractee or a payer is making payment for a contract to a contractor or a resident person. ठीक है? The rate is individual HF के केस में 1%, non-individual HF के केस में 2%. The TDS would be deducted only at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Threshold limit is 30,000 per bill or aggregate more than 1 lakh in the financial year. Here, there should be a contract for carrying work or for labor. Work includes advertising, broadcasting, telecasting, including production programs, carriage of goods and passengers other than by railways, catering and manufacturing or supply of an article or a product as per the material and specifications provided. Material and specification दोनों client के होने चाहिए या customer के होने चाहिए. उसके अलावा we discussed production of program as per specification 194C. Not as per specification, just a purchase of copyright. 194C would not be covered. Transporters case में the small transporters give me a declaration and give me his PAN number that he has trucks less than 10 or less than 10 during the year, then TDS would not be deducted. Then hiring charges we cleared. Personal nature's payment of individual HF are not covered here. No TDS is required to be deducted. Warehouses we discussed. Then agencies contract we discussed. एडवर्टाइजिंग एजेंसी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में डिस्कस, एडमिशन कमीशन वहां पे नहीं आता, वो प्रॉफिट होते हैं जो advertising agency retain and makes payment to media houses. That is the part of profit which they are retaining until unless they're working on one agent basis, otherwise the principal basis. No 194C would be there. Any other part which you want me to revise under 194C? I think all is done. Yeah. Maybe we'll do more sections, students, do not worry. But 194C is quite lengthy. किसी को भी कोई doubt है? So I was talking about payment to travel agent. उसमें ना clarification आया था बहुत clear कि अगर मैं एक employee के लिए, please listen, this might not be covered here in your book and might not be covered in the study material. There was a clarification many years back whereby it was given by CBDT that if the payment is made by the employer for the travel of employee to a travel agent, then even if it is made by employer, even if it is for the travel, but they will not deduct the TDS because the privity of contract, even if the payment is made by employer, but the privity of contract is between the employee and the travel agent company, right? It is between the employee and that travel agent. That's why that payment would not be covered. But if an employer charters a plane for the traveling of employee, in that case, 194C would be covered. Okay. Kaushik, what charges you are referring to for petrol pump? I don't think which you are talking about. Go, I'll cover later. अब इस वो I'll take up अभी. Next. Next, we are covering types of commissions. There are 3 types of commission covered. One is, इसको अगर हम comparatively करें, तभी it would be better to understand. One is 194. D. Next is 194 G and next is 194 H. दोनों तीनों commissions को एक साथ cover करते हैं, ठीक है? 194 D, 194 G, 194 H. 194 D talks about यहाँ पे पेयर कौन है? LIC company, life insurance companies, not LIC only, any insurance company I should write. who gives commission to their agent. The payment here is in the nature of insurance commission given by insurance company to their agents. ठीक है, आप जितना बिजनेस लेके आते हो उस हिसाब से इंश्योरेंस कंपनी गिव्स कमीशन टू देयर एजेंट्स. 194G is especially in case of lottery agent commission. जैसे लॉटरी टिकट डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स होते हैं, जो लॉटरी टिकट्स ऑर्गेनाइजर्स होते हैं, जो एजेंट्स को कमीशन देते हैं ऑन द लॉटरी टिकट सोल्ड. जितना ज्यादा लॉटरी टिकट वुड बी सोल्ड, उतना कमीशन इज गिवन टू दैट इज लॉटरी टिकट कमीशन. And one is general 194H, which covers general brokerage and commission. जहां पे the nature of payment is brokerage and commission. Here, payer can be any person, and payer can be any person except same individual HUF, वो जो हम 194A में पढ़ा, ठीक है. Last year turnover is less than 1 crore और gross receipts are less than 50 lakhs, वो वाला individual HUF, ठीक है. Here pay can be any resident person. यहाँ तक अभी ने कहीं पे भी resident word use नहीं किया, but यहाँ पे pay can be any resident person. Here also commission rate सब में same है, 5%, 5%, 5%. Everywhere the commission rates are same, 5%, 5%, 5%. Here also, time of deduction is credit or payment, whichever is earlier, credit or payment, whichever is earlier, credit or payment, whichever is earlier. तीनों में same है. Threshold limit in fact तीनों में same है. 15,000 per annum से ज़्यादा commission होगा, then only the TDS is required to be deducted. So these are the 3 commission sections: threshold, nature, payer, pay, timeline, rate. Clear? उसके अलावा just remember commission से related कुछ case laws हैं 194H में, whereby first case law is difference of commission and discount. अब example क्या होता है, ये जो stamp paper vendors होते हैं, they purchase stamp paper at a less rate and then give it to the customer at the full rate. So 500 का stamp paper suppose वो 480 में purchase कर रहे हैं या 450 में purchase कर रहे हैं from the authorities, and then they are giving you at a full 500. Similarly 1000 का 20,000 का they purchase at a pre-denominated price and then give it in full price to the customer. So a question आता है that spread which they are keeping of whatever percentage which they are keeping on a stamp paper, suppose 500 का उनको 480 का आता है, which is 20. Similarly 10,000 rupees का stamp paper उनको say hardly 8,500 का पड़ता है. So that 1,500 which they are keeping, is that a discount or is that a commission? Because if it's that a commission which stamp duty vendors are getting it at a pre-denominated price, if that the pre-denominated price is working, the difference is that a discount or a commission? This is what a question comes again and again. So a clarification comes that this stamp duty vendor ko whatever this difference is given is a discount. Hence, since it's not a commission, 194H would not be attracted. 194H would not be attracted. Clear? Then एक और क्लैरिफिकेशन आया था, और ऐसे ये डिस्काउंट कमीशन वाला बहुत सारी जगह है, लाइक वोडाफोन के रिचार्जेस पे बहुत सारी जगह पे दिस डिस्काउंट कमीशन कॉन्सेप्ट कैन बी अप्लाई. नेक्स्ट इज अंडरराइटिंग कमीशन, जो भी सिक्योरिटी से रिलेटेड कमीशन होती है, ये सारी कमीशन पे TDS 194H में would not be attracted. 194H में TDS would not be attracted. Third is your BSNL, MTNL, yeah. भारत संचार निगम लिमिटेड, MTNL. Yeah. So whatever BSNL and MTNL, whatever they are paying for to the PCOs walas, जो पहले PCOs होते थे आज तो like it's been ages, but I think still in many hilly areas and rural areas we still have PCOs. So whatever BSNL, MTNL are paying sort of commission only to these STD PCOs, उन commission पे TDS would not be deducted. There has been a strict notification against it. ठीक है? So this is all about 194H from my side. If you have any other query, I would be happy to answer. Take your time. Go through it. 194 DGH. DG इतने common questions नहीं आते, but definitely H से आते हैं. और advertising agency वाला already हमने इसमें cover कर दिया था, right? Any doubt? If transporter owns exactly 10 vehicles, will TDS be attracted? No, if he gives a declaration and also he gives his PAN number. And 10 trucks during the previous year होने चाहिए, preceding previous year का बात नहीं हो रहा, okay? Okay. Priyanka, thank you for the information. I'll ask the technical people to please check it why the lecture has not been uploaded. Okay. Ashok sir, please see into the query of Priyanka. Okay. So now we'll do one more section and we'll wrap up the class. It's a very small section and very interesting section. Let's start. Okay. So now we are going to cover section 194D, payment in respect of life insurance policy. Now, this section will also revise your section 1010D, which is exemption for life, any sum received under life insurance. Let's understand. Now, earlier this section again was introduced a few years back. Life insurance policies say certain amount which is received is generally exempt under section 1010D. ठीक है, तो this section does not cover the amount which is exempt under section 1010D. This section covers the payment which is taxable. Which is taxable. 1010D में कौन सा amount exempt होता है? Generally a life insurance policy which is as per the capital sum assured, और अब तो बहुत सारी conditions आ गई with present Finance Act bringing a lot of conditions and limits here, but jiska sum assured is within the premium is 10% within 10%, 12% or 15% वो जो rates चल रहे थे, the premium is within that amount, तो वो exempt होता था 1010D में. In fact 1010D में any legal hire receives the life insurance amount of the deceased person, that is also exempt. So what is not exempt is taxable. And that taxable वाला life insurance का ही अगर कुछ payment मिल रहा है, that would be deductible under section 194DA. उस पे tax would be deductible under section 194DA. Who would be the payer? Obviously the insurance company. Who would be the payee? Who would be the payee here? Any person who is receiving the sum. When is the time of deduction? At the time of payment. What is the rate? Rate here is 5%. Rate here is 5%. Okay. And then what is the threshold limit? Threshold limit is when the amount which is received during the year, or the aggregate amount which is received during the year, is up to 1 lakh, then no TDS would be deducted. But if the amount crosses 1 lakh, if the amount is 1 lakh or more, then the TDS would be deducted. 1 lakh or more, TDS deducted. Up to 1 lakh, no TDS. Okay, clear? Ab is quickly we'll do this question. Please take it as for the previous year 22-23. X, a resident, is due to receive 4.50 lakhs on 31st of March 2022 towards maturity policy, maturity proceeds of a policy taken on 1st April 2019, for which the sum assured is 4 lakhs and the annual premium is 1,25,000. So I have to check first 1010D applicable है या नहीं ऐसे questions में, और वो कैसे applicable होगा? I have to see whether the premium is within 10% of the sum assured. इस case में clearly it is not within 10% of the sum assured, so that's why TDS would be attracted. But how much amount of the TDS would be calculated? Just 1 second. अच्छा, this एक चीज स्टूडेंट, एक चीज प्लीज 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 रिमेम्बर 1 second. Triggering point here is the threshold limit here is 1 lakh or more, and the TDS कब कटेगा? When the threshold limit is crossing 1 lakh or more. And what is this amount? The proceeds. यहाँ पे एक important चीज है, when the proceeds are 1 lakh or more. But TDS कितने पे कटेगा? Is 5%. 5% of income. अब income क्या है? आपको income क्या होता है? Whatever is received minus whatever is paid, that is the income, right? So from the perspective of a person who is receiving the sum due or the bonus amount, what would be the income? Income would be the amount received minus the premium paid till date, right? The amount minus the premium. Amount मुझे कितना मिला? 4,50,000. प्रीमियम मैंने कितना पे करा? 125 पर ईयर. 1920 का एक, 2021 का एक, 21-22 का एक. ठीक है? So which is 125,000 into 3. So here the income is 75,000. So TDS would be deducted at 5% on 75,000, which is 3,750. And then the net amount of 4,50,000 would be paid. 5% मेच्योरिटी अमाउंट का नहीं घटेगा. मेच्योरिटी अमाउंट का कटने लगा तो हो गया का 5% कटेगा इनकम का. बट ट्रिगरिंग वुड हैपन व्हेन मेच्योरिटी अमाउंट इज मोर देन 1 lakh. Even if the income is here less than 1 lakh, but triggering would happen when the maturity amount is more than 1 lakh. Okay, remember this very, very important aspect. Okay, next is why a resident is due to receive 3.95 lakh on 31st March of the policy taken on 31st March 2012, for which the sum assured is 3,50,000 and the annual premium is 30,100. Now this जो भी 2012 वाला पॉलिसी था उसको एलिजिबल होने के लिए the premium could be 20% of the sum assured, right? 80C में भी तभी डिडक्शन मिलता है, 1010D में भी तभी वो exempt होते हैं. So this is exempt under 1010DD. So hence no tax is required to be deducted. Next, Mr. Z, a resident, is due to receive 95,000 on 1st of August 21 towards maturity proceeds of LIC of policy taken on 1st of August 2015, for which the sum assured is 90,000 and the premium is 10,000. The premium is 10,000. Now, premium is exceeding, since the policy is taken on 1st August 2015, premium is exceeding 10%, right? So एक condition, एक trigger तो हो रहा है, it is taxable because it is not exempt under section 1010D, right? दूसरा trigger would happen if the proceeds are crossing 1 lakh. Now here the proceeds are not crossing 1 lakh, so no TDS deduction is required. Is clear? Not crossing 1 lakh, proceeds is 1 lakh or more. ठीक है, 1 lakh पे भी TDS deduction would be attracted. Clear? So with this, we complete our sections. Today we have discussed section 192, 192 salary payments, 192A, premature withdrawal of PF payments, 193 interest on securities, 194 TDS on dividend, 194A interest other than interest on securities, 194B crossword winnings, lottery winnings, 194BB winning from horse races, 194C, very important, TDS on contractual payments, 194D, 194G, 194H, commissions, different types, insurance commission, lottery commission, and commission and brokerage in general, and 194DA. Okay, so tomorrow, or not tomorrow, in the next class, we start with 194E. And next class would be a very quick hop on, because आज to 15-20 minutes we spend on understanding the aspect of TDS and stuff. Next class would be a very quick from one section to another, another. So please be prepared with what we have studied till now. Do not forget to attempt questions, illustration till section 1, illustration till illustration 9. And in fact, illustration 12 also, and 11 also, and that's it. 10 you can skip, okay? And also do read them, prepare that chart flow. It would be a boon to help you while revising your exam, and trust me, you will remember that chart, okay? Also, students, as a quick keeping, you can, because these are very general section, 194 EE, you can just give a read. 194F, you can give a read. I'll start with 194E and then we'll move to 194I. Okay, so EE or FB, just give it a read because that is not pretty much important. Okay. Pehle, I will cover 194 IA, IB, and M. I will cover later, and S also. Rest I will cover first. Okay, so I'll try to cover all the TD sections by the next class. So please be prepared for the next class. Any query, I would be very happy to take. Okay, so shall we wrap up today's class then? Perfect. It was a great time teaching you all. You people were very supportive. Thank you so much. Have a good time. See you in the next class.